Hello and welcome to today the news on Vanguard Life. My name is Dablola Shaki and I'm starting with Vanguard on the paper review. Vanguard is leading with defections. PDP's collapse imminent, that's according to GANDUJE and WIKE. Our party will rise again in 2027, that's according to Wabara. You can see that story on page 5 of Vanguard newspaper. Conference all experts to brainstorm on government performance at midterm. For UTME results, we are all responsible. That's coming from NAPTAN. You can see that on pages 9 and 5. On page 6, soldiers killed as Boko Haram attacks military base in Borno. Suspected herdsmen kill 7 in fresh attacks on Benue communities. On sport, Egypt 2025. Nigeria qualify for 2025 FIFA Under 20 World Cup finals. Above the banner on page 20, World Bank, Federal Government disagree on Budget 2025 assumptions. Delta, how monarchs are vigilante members aid kidnapping. You can see that on page 12. On page 14, I Court dismisses suit challenging Eyoma as Olugbo Cicero of Warri Kingdom. On page 19, Federal Government opens 300 billion naira Sukuk 7 as investors ask for more. Away from Vanguard, we move to The Guardian. Guardian's leading story says World Bank admits Nigeria's economic progress, says prices remain high. UTME jammed to address technical issues as 8,391 candidates threaten class action. WIKE candidate answers as IPOP declares seat at home on May 30 in Southeast. Suspension. Court hears contempt over applications in Natasha suit today. You can see that on news page 8, 7, and 28 of the Guardian newspaper. Now on page 6, 2027, amid pushback, zoning complaints, others, PDP explores reconciliation. NNPCL to resume oil drilling in North as production threatens 2025 budget. Federal government to overhaul underperforming discos amid lingering IBDC takeover. Lagos Labour Party suspends chair, dissolves ward executive as Abure faction tackles OT. And lastly, on the Guardian newspaper, United States, China agreed to roll back tariffs for 19 days. You can see that on page 3. Now let's move to the Punch. Punch leading story says why Tinubu 54.9 trillion naira budget, federal government, World Bank at odds over funding strategy. Banks fears government may resort to CBN emergency funds, fault budget parameters, and minister counters. You can see that on page 2. And there are 3 photo stories here with the writer that says Bielsa said to immortalize Clark and meet tribute from Jonathan and Diri. On page 13, push to crash drug prices gained fake approval. Lagos APC aspirant protest today over local government primaries. United Kingdom unveils plan to slash annual immigration by 100,000. You can see that on page 13 above the banner. Why Tinubu will defeat PDP again in 2027. That's coming from Wiki. Saraki heads 7-woman PDP reconciliation panel. Lastly, on the Punch newspaper, restructuring, federal government deploys special teams to underperforming discos. You can see that on page 27. Lastly, let's take a look at the Nation. Nation leading story says FEC OK's plans to reduce the cost of medicines, create jobs. Medipol to drive down costs, improve access to high quality pharmaceutical products. And inside that story, we have policy on job creation revived, creative industry to facilitate 2 million jobs by 2027. Federal workers get a group life assurance policy, 2.3 billion naira procurement of cardiac catheterization machine. You can see that on page 7. Edo government petitions Inspector General, DSS Director General over alleged court leader. You can see that on page 8. PDP governors rally to hold party today. Clark lead for others, says Jonathan. You can see that on page 7. INEC engaging National Assembly on electoral reforms. You can see that on page 7. And above the banner, economy recorded fastest growth in 2024, says World Bank. WIKE, Fubara came to me with 2 APC governors. JAMB opens a probe into UTME cliches. And lastly, on the Nation newspaper, security under Tinubu key gains and emerging challenges. You can see that on the pages 2, 3, and 6 of the Nation newspaper. And that's all we have on the front pages of the dailies. Join us after the break for a brief analysis of some of the stories with our guest. Welcome back. If you're just joining me, this is today the news of Ragged Life. My name is Damola Ogunshaki, and joining me to analyze some of the stories on the front pages this morning is Mr. Dayo Akintobi. He's the publisher of Ilu Pages Today, Lekki Today, and Ikeja GRA Today. Good morning, Mr. Dayo.
Good morning, Damola. Good morning to all of you.
Yes, and thank you for coming. Now, the National Chairman of All Progressive Congress (APC), Alhaji Abdullahi Ganduje, and FCT Minister Yeson Wike yesterday said the destruction of People's Democratic Party (PDP) is imminent. And what do you think about the fact that some of PDP members have all defected to APC, and the fact that many people are scared of the fact that Nigeria might become a one-party system? What's your take on this?
Well, I think Ganduje was being generous by saying imminent, meaning that it hasn't happened yet. As far as I'm concerned, PDP has collapsed already. I don't see any major structure by which the PDP can still refer to itself as a party in every sense of what the word means. And I think the beginning of the end of the PDP began as far back as 2019, when after losing the presidential bid to unseat Buhari, Atiku ran off to um, Dubai and abandoned the party to its own, his own fate. And that was when Nyesom Wike became very active and was the one who held the party together at that point in time. So the PDP's big problem today is that Atiku, it has no leader. A political party has to have a unifying force that everybody rallies around. When you think about it, look at the APC, there's Tinubu. If you look at countries like the United States, the Democratic Party of JFK, Democratic Party of Bill Clinton, Democratic Party of Obama, for example. You have the Ronald Reagan Republicans. In the UK, you had Margaret Thatcher Conservatives, So from era to era to era, a political party is held together by the unifying force of its leader at that moment in time. You can't point to such a person in the PDP today. Atiku is a divisive force. Why? When the party needed him most, he was nowhere to be found. Secondly, some people view him as illegitimate, or better yet, some people view him as being out of time with the reality of Nigerian politics, because after 8 years of the North with Buhari, the way we've always done it in Nigeria for the sense of unity, sense of belonging, is that we rotate power between the North and the South.
Yes.
So it is seen as arrant, call it arrogance, call it whatever you think, that after 8 years of Northern hegemony through Buhari, any Northerner would even contemplate coming back to try and say, I want to run for office. The standard thing should have been that once Buhari did his 8 years, he should have rotated. No party should have presented a Northern candidate. But Atiku bulldozed his way to the ticket, because even the PDP governors had all agreed that it was going to be a Southern candidate that they put forward. That was the beginning of Wike's beef. Was that why should Atiku be given the ticket when they had agreed that it would be a Southern candidate they would present, in keeping with Nigeria's informal agreement that power should rotate from region to region. So by virtue of him putting himself forward and bulldozing his way into the candidacy, he has alienated half of the party who don't see him as their legitimate leader. So the PDP today doesn't have a unifying force, doesn't have a rallying force, doesn't have an arrowhead, and as such, it's factionalized, it's broken into pieces, and the pieces are all disjointed and powerless and all fighting. Look, who is the NEC? Who is the EXCO? Who is the party? You can't even point to anybody that can guide the party in any direction today. They have a few governors, they're jumping ship. It's like rats jumping out of a sinking ship, you know. Even governors who are still one leg in the PDP are using their mouth to say, oh, we are going to support the re-election of a PC president in 2027. So wherein is the PDP? It doesn't exist anymore. Let's write it off. Maybe the Tatars of the PDP can join themselves together and get a new name and rally around and start from scratch. But the PDP, as we know it, effectively dead, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, are there strategies that PDP can employ to stem the tide of defections and improve the party?
I don't see it really, honestly. I don't, because what I see is disintegration. I don't see anything that can stem the tide at this point in time. Because look, politics is all about interest. Every single politician in Nigeria of today, the way we practice democracy, the only purpose of a party in Nigeria of today is to give you a platform to be elected. It's not because they rally around any ideology that unifies them. Or, like, for example, let's go back to America again. Republicans are conservative, Democrats are liberal. So depending on what you believe in, are you an advocate of abortion? Do you believe in prayer in schools? Are you against same-sex marriage? Those kind of things is what determines where you sit in terms of political party. But in Nigeria, we don't have that. People just choose party based on which party you think is strong in the area you are in and that can give you a platform to contest and you have a good chance to win. So where in Nigeria today can you point to that the PDP can guarantee you a win? Even the South and the Southeast that used to be homogeneously PDP, not even a slight little shred of any other party could rear its head in the South and the Southeast as recently as 10 years ago. Today, you have pockets of APC governorship or APC leadership in states in the Southeast. Forget even the one that the Supreme Court imposed in Uzodinma. Which state is he from? Is he Imo?
Yes, Imo State.
Yeah, okay, so that was a Supreme Court foisted governorship. But since then, there have been other governors from the APC who have won legitimately at the polls in the Southeast. And look at now, even the South, look at Delta State Governor, wholesale. Both the present governor and the immediate past governor, all of them jump ship. So where can you point to? Anambra has always been APGA. Where can you point to that the PDP can guarantee you a victory if you join that party? Nowhere in Nigeria of today can say that it is loyally committed to the PDP to where they are guaranteed to give them all their votes. So why would a politician join the PDP? Remember, the primary purpose of a politician is to get himself elected and re-elected and re-elected. So he's going to look for the vehicle that can help him actualize that ambition. And the PDP at this moment can't help anybody to actualize that vision. So how are they going to stem the tide? How are they going to stop people from leaving? It's not possible. Everybody's going to continue to live and live to where there are greener pastures that can give them tickets, and not just tickets, but victories as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move away from that and talk about the World Bank. Yesterday, they described the budget 2025 key assumptions of 2.1 million barrels per day oil production and $73 per barrel price as ambitious, given the current production level of 1.6 million barrels per day and 60 BP per barrel price at the international market. What do you think about those figures?
When that budget first came out, I don't know if you remember, right here at this very seat, I said the assumptions were ambitious. Yes. I said they were overly ambitious. I said they were based on forecasts that might not be sustainable. And here we are today. I'm not saying I'm a soothsayer or I'm Nostradamus who can see into the future. No, I'm not saying that. But here we are. Look, budget was based on 2.something million barrels of oil per day production. We're doing 1.6. It was based on $70-something dollars per barrel. We're at $60 now. So already about 40% of what we projected is not happening. And here we are in May, halfway through the year. Next month is the 6th month. So I would think that they should just rewrite the budget. Forget. Because they can't, in its present form, they can't implement it fully. And what will end up happening is that there will be a shortfall. And guess what they will do when they have a shortfall? Remember what we were crying about when Buhari did it, ways and means. Remember, they will run to CBN to go and get ways and means, and use that to cover as a loan, to cover the budget shortfall. And everybody was up in an uproar at that time. How can you do that? That's like getting the CBN to print money for government anyhow. So the Tinubu government came into office saying, we will never, I remember the CBN governor saying, we will not do these ways and means ever again. But there's no other way, based on the current budget. There's no other way to fund shortfall beyond going for ways and means. So I would say, let's sit down, let's rewrite the budget. What it means basically is cut the cost of governance, all the things you have written there. Because what is a budget? A budget is simply a projection of all the things that we want to spend money on this fiscal year. So they've written Lagos Calabar Coastal Road. They've written Abuja to somewhere train. They've written fixed refinery. They've written fund the military, fund the education, do all those things. They should sit back down and readjust those figures lower for everything. Even we are complaining already about education. Your next story, you're going to talk about UTME, how poor the results were. So when there's not enough money to even boost education, we're talking about reducing. But that's the reality. We do not have enough money, and we will not have enough money to fund the 2025 budget. So let's be realistic. Let's not end up with a deficit that now puts us into more trouble because we have to now start doing shenanigans to make sure we get the money to cover it. So let's realistically sit down. Let's rework this budget to more realistic figures. Let's take different benchmarks. Instead of 2.2 million barrels per day, let's call it 1.6 million. How much money will 1.6 million barrels per day give us at $60 per barrel? Because remember, 70% of that federal government's revenue is from oil. So oil is the sustenance. So if you've already overestimated how much is coming in by 40%, you are in trouble. You can't fund the budget. So I look at the World Bank. I mean, normally I take IMF, World Bank, and all these agencies. I take them with a grain of salt because I feel like they don't really have our interest at heart. But that report yesterday essentially said that essentially said what we have known all along and what we have been saying all along, and they've been denying both in the government, in the administration. What we've known all along is that the economy is poor. Things are expensive. We're having a hard time. Our salary is not going far to where it should go. Petrol is high, bande, electricity is high, food is high in the market, salaries are stagnant. We're having a hard time. We've been shouting this from the rooftops for how many months now? So all of a sudden now, World Bank, who has been a big booster of this president's policies because it was the one who was recommending fuel subsidy removal, recommending liberalization of the naira, devaluation, all those things. So they were all along saying, oh yes, these are good reforms. These are good reforms. So for them to have come out yesterday and said, reforms are not working. Things are tough in Nigeria. Things are tough. I feel vindicated because you, me, and every other person in this business has been shouting that same thing, saying, face reality and tell the truth. So now, World Bank is facing up to the reality of our situation. Maybe now, proper recommendations will start coming in about the proper way to address our economic woes, because we have economic woes at this time.
Well, still talking about World Bank recommendation, they recommended that Nigeria should accelerate its growth rate fivefold to achieve a 1 trillion economy by 2030. So, what structural reforms do you think are necessary to achieve this?
The man on the street is saying, I want to eat 3 square meals. You are talking about trillion naira economy. Where is trillion naira economy coming from? You have no power to power industry, right? You have no roads to move goods. You have no rail to move goods. I mean, I like people who are realistic. It's fantastic to have highfalutin goals and say, oh, this sounds good to have vision. Remember Vision 2020? What came of that? So now all of a sudden here we are saying by 2030 we'll have a 1 trillion. It sounds nice and good on paper, but what's the reality? How achievable is it when here we are still faltering? In 2025, we are still faltering. How in 5 years are we going to create a trillion economy when the foundational underpinning is still flawed? The foundation of everything we do, from security. Remember, insecurity plays a big role in the economy. Did you hear about Boko Haram going to sack a military installation yesterday in northern Borno? Did you hear about that? So farmers in the north cannot go to farm. They can't produce food. People cannot live in their village. All insecurity is wreaking havoc on the economy. And so far, this administration has been stymied in its efforts to try and battle insecurity. When I heard it yesterday, I was distressed that a ragtag army, Boko Haram, can go inside a military installation and sack our soldiers with all the fortification, all the armament, all the armory, all the weaponry. Boko Haram went into a military installation, come and see soldiers running helter-skelter. Oh, Nigeria, I weep for thee. Oh, goodness gracious me.
Wow, it's not a laughing matter, but let's.
No, it's a crime
It's
matter,
a crime
really.
matter in
Yeah,
Nigeria. Well, let's talk
absolutely.
about UTME, and I know that's really the talk of the town now. So, what do you think about the consistently low UTME scores? I mean, last year they recorded low scores. This year, it's worse. Out of over 1.9 million students, 1.5 million plus got lower than 200. That's half of the score. What do you think about it?
And that's about 70% of those who took
That's
it got less than
it.
half of the score. Well, it speaks to just how low the quality of our education has sunk. And of course, a lot of it still has to do with all the systemic issues that plague the society generally, because you can't expect that your healthcare, your healthcare space is faltering, your economy is faltering, your agric is faltering, your industry is faltering, electricity, and then all of a sudden, education will be
Education.
thriving. The same ills that plague all the other sectors will plague education too. And I look at this kind of thing. Okay, let's talk about Jackpot syndrome, for example, right? What is the quality of the teachers that are there teaching our children? All the cream of the crop, our best people have all run away to other countries. So we have those who either are still trying to go, who haven't been able to figure out a way to get visa and passport, or we have those who don't qualify because they're not the best and maybe overseas did not accept them, So who are the people and how are they encouraged? How are they motivated? Are they being paid well? I mean, I look at our legislators and see what they earn, and I see them awarding increases to the judiciary. They are giving judiciary jeeps. They are giving judiciary houses. Remember, WIKE is building estate for judges in Abuja, right? Why are they looking after the judiciary and neglecting the teachers? Why? Because the judiciary is who protects their tenure in offices. So they will mollycoddle the judiciary and ignore the education sector to our detriment, because guess what? You ignore the education sector, and at the end of the day, it's half-baked people who end up leading us. Semi-literate, half-baked, unintelligent people, because at the point where we should have invested the money to make sure that we we nurture and raise the best that Nigeria can produce, because Nigeria is a country of tremendous human capital. The most intelligent people in the world are Nigerians. Go and see what they're doing all over the world. So where is the fail point? Why is that disconnect between Nigerians that are performing wonders globally and those of us who are left behind here? I put it down all to the decisions made by our leaders, that their prioritization is wrong. So UTME, they are failing. Why? Teaching is poor, funding is poor. Even us parents are responsible, which is what NAPTIP, the Parents Teacher Association, was saying. Us parents too, that we have abdicated our responsibilities to our children because we too are chasing money all over the place every day. We don't have time. Meanwhile, we've left the raising of our children to the teachers in school. But at the end of the day, when you look at it, the children still spend more time with you at home than they do. So there's response. So we're all to blame for this thing. Let's not just say it's government only. The education system has its own feelings, but we too, as a society, we as individuals, we as family members, we as heads of family, we have our own responsibility. But then the flip side of the coin is that any average father in the home will say, "What do you want me to do? I have to feed my family now, so I have to go out and go and hustle." So I can't be there if I'm looking for money outside. How can I be there to be raising the child or disciplining the child or make sure he does his homework or checking his intellectual growth and development? I don't have the time. I need to keep a roof over their head and money in their pocket. So it's a systemic. See, what I want you to understand is that no problem exists in isolation. One thing happens that has a ripple effect on the next, on the next, on the next, on the next. So by the time you get to education sector, it's a cumulative effect of things that are coming all the way from Abuja through Alausa, through the forests, through the oil creeks in Niger Delta, through the farms and the herdsmen in Nasarawa. They're all interconnected. Look, we no longer live in isolation. Even in Nigeria, in a global village, where what you do today has an effect on somebody who is living 100 miles away from you. We are all interconnected. And so I don't see how we can say that Nigeria's educational sector, I don't see why we would expect any better. Why are we shocked that students have failed? Have we not failed in curbing insecurity? Have we not failed in improving the economy? Have we not failed in feeding ourselves? Have we not failed in providing electricity? So if we failed in all those things that are interconnected, how do we expect to thrive in education? It can't work. So fix the foundational underpinnings first, and then you will begin to see improvement in all the sectors.
All right. One of the things that many people have talked about, they said the student and the student access to technology, to phones, to the internet has really affected them. And yesterday, we talked about the report, the communication sector. They've talked about it, that their data, despite the fact that people are complaining that food and everything is really high, the communication sector, they are making a lot of money when it comes to data. Everybody wants to be online. They want to access the informations online and go through their TikTok, and you see these young people on TikTok. So people have complained that some of the social media platforms, they are affecting the student, that the students should be limited from accessing phones.
Well, my response to that is that what are they using the data to? Although you've mentioned TikTok, what are the youth using the data to access? Are they learning how to do coding? Are they learning AI? Are they learning logic and robotics and all the things that give for intellectual growth and development and will help us to grow our country into one of the world's best in the coming years? No, we have become a nation of entertainment. Entertainment, meanwhile, only puts food on the table for a very few set of people, but everybody wants to go and be entertained. We want to laugh. We want to have light-hearted moments, maybe forget our problems. So I look at TikTok and I really worry for the next generation, because everybody is shaking bomb bomb. Everybody, I mean, it is out of this world. And I'm looking at them saying, this has no redeeming value to humanity. Entertainment is not real. It's a flashing, passing thing. But we are investing so much time in it for our youth. They are permanently on their phones, TikTok, Facebook, all these things, and it's all entertainment. No socially redeeming or intellectually enhancing value to the stuff they are watching. So yes, that obviously has an impact on their performance in exams, because they're not growing themselves intellectually. When we were growing up, our father made us watch news every night, 7 o'clock news. He made us read all the newspapers. We had to have 2 or 3 books we were reading at any. Novels, not school books, so separate, that used to help us grow our vocabulary, used to help expand our minds and our creativity, and we begin to imagine a world. As I remember Enid Blyton's series and all these books we read as kids, those things help to grow our intellectual capability. Today's youth are getting none of it. It's just noise and entertainment every day. So why wouldn't they fail UTME? Why won't adding 1+1 to get 2 become a problem for the youth? So it's a societal values. Yes, you say we can't eat 3 square meals a day, yet data expenditure is skyrocketing on a daily basis. But is it skyrocketing for access to the things that will develop the mind of the youth? No, unfortunately. But I don't at the same time believe in censorship. So I don't think the way to go is to say restrict them from using phone. I think that's up to parental that's parental responsibility to be able to control and monitor their parents, their charges, their offspring's exposure, the activities of their children, especially those who are under the age of adulthood, should be tightly controlled by parents. I don't think societally we should curtail it by saying we want to ban TikTok or we want to restrict their access. Because if you know youth, the more you try to stop him from doing something, the more he's going to find ways to circumvent your restrictions. So censorship never works.
All right, let's end this on a lighter note with Mr. and Mrs. today. And the first person speaking is Mr. Mr. says, we treat him like a king whenever he visits. Do you know Samson and his wife didn't offer me even ordinary water? Dear, I'm embittered. And Mrs. replied, there's no need to bring bitterness from outside. I've already prepared delicious bitter leaf soup for you.
Yeah, what
Oh my God.
oh goodness. Mrs. just melted my heart. That's the kind of wife we all want.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dio, for joining us this morning.
My pleasure always.
Yeah, so want to like and follow us on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. You can also visit our website www.vanguardngr.com. Have a lovely Tuesday. My name